My name is Dawn Smith, and I am Director of Publishing. So all of the darts, arrows, boomerangs, slingshots, they all come across my desk. I have a phenomenal team of writers who helps to write all of these amazing guides for you to use. And I pick all the books, which is both a wonderful, amazing, phenomenal job and also very daunting because I want to make sure y'all have amazing books to study. So, all right. So idea for today really was trying to help those of you along who maybe have never done a dart or arrow boomerang. You're kind of getting your feet on the ground, or for those of you who are veterans who have done all kinds of to maybe just come together with other homeschoolers and kind of plan alongside. Sometimes writers that I know will chime in on like a Slack or something, and they'll say, hey, I'm going to do a deep dive. I want to write for an hour. Who wants to write with me? And so everybody comes together at that time. They dedicate themselves to shutting off all their notifications. They dive in, they write in all their different locations, and then they come back together and say, wow, I was really productive. I got so much done. Thanks for writing with me. And then, off they go. And so it is kind of reminds me of like that toddler parallel play. So that's what we're doing today. We are homeschool parallel planning in this little jam session. So I do want to have some guidance for us as we go along, especially for those of you who are brand new. So I printed some things. I have some ideas. I may screen share and just kind of walk us through some practical ways to quickly, without taking up too much of your time, plan for your first week and then set you up for planning for the rest of whichever guide you're going to be using. So this will apply to any guide you're using. I'll put some qualifiers in there if there's some feature I talk about that's just in the dart or this in the boomerangs or slingshots. Okay, so what I started with was looking at the first dart of the year, which is painting the game. The first thing I did was I printed the Our Week With planner. In the new darts, arrows, boomerangs, you will find this at the beginning of the guide, along with the skills tracker. If you are using an older dart, arrow, boomerang, slingshot, these two pages are in your guidelines. They are at the back of the guidelines. So if you're looking for those are the two places you look. If it's new, look in the front of your guide. If it's an older one, find your guidelines, look in the guidelines. So we're basically going to be walking through the Our Week With and the prep section. So the first section over here is the prep section, and then we have the With the Kids section. So once you do your prep section, then that'll tell you what you're going to do with your kids. All right. So one thing I want to draw your attention to before we get started, I'm going to share my screen really quick, because as we get going here, there are a few kind of key features, things we're going to talk about that you may have questions about. So when you're planning, you maybe don't want to think about how often you're going to do language arts right away. But if it's limited, or if you know you have certain limitations, then that could be a consideration. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see one of the pages in the guidelines if you haven't seen it yet. In the DART guidelines, it's on page 13, and it's sample routines. So once again, the program's really flexible. You can pick and choose what you want to do. But if you are kind of wondering how to fit it all together, definitely look at the sample routines page. And we just give like day 1 through 5. And some of those sample routines even have take a break. So there's really 4 days. Like we used to, in my homeschool, we did 4 days because on Fridays we did volunteer work. And so a lot of our time that we spent doing things like this mainly was 4 days. But then also we did things on the weekends and we integrated it in. And then there's a whole mix it up section over here that kind of helps to guide you and give you tips about how to integrate these things into your daily life without necessarily having it all be like sit down at the table kind of work. All right, so I am going to switch over to the actual Dart here to start with. One of the first things that you might think about doing is how to divide your book up. Like the read aloud seems like it's one of the first things you kind of figure out. So we added the suggested reading guides to some of the newer issues. Some of the older ones don't have it, but there are lots of ways to go about it. This is one model for how you can do it. If you want to like start reading on day one, and that's like the week one, and you mark that. So what you could do is you could take the suggested reading guide and you can mark those pages. The way this works is that the week one, chapters 1 through 4, they're going to cover all the way till you get past the week 2 passage. So the idea when you're planning your week is you kind of want to like look at where are the passages, and you want to read beyond the passage for the next week. So I'll stop screen sharing here so that you can see what I'm talking about. Like what I did with painting the game is I went to the Dart, and the easiest way to do this is at the back of the guide are the passage pages. So all the passage pages are right there in a row, so you don't have to do a bunch of scrolling. So just go to the passage pages. The first passage is on this page 5 here. So I put a mark. I put a book tab there. The second passage is on page 34. So I put a tab there. So I know when we're reading during week 1, I want to at least make it to this page, because then next week, week 2, when we start going, we'll have already read the passage that we're going to be studying. And then same for week 3. So you can mark, page 68 is where the week 3 passage is. So right now, if you want to grab your book, scroll through your guide or look at the passage pages and mark those and see where your passage pages are. And that's a really good way to go ahead and mark where the passages are so that you can read past that during your read aloud time. And then that will prep you for the next week to know, okay, when we start on Monday, if we're doing copy work on Monday, I know my kids have already read past this page. We've read past it as a read aloud. So right now you can go through, look at your passage pages, mark those pages in your book, and you'll have those set up for you when you start your read aloud. Another option that you have for marking those and for tackling big juicy questions, I will share in a minute. So that's a great first step because it kind of gives you like a scope for where you're going to go with your read alouds. If we look at the prep section of our week with Dart, it says read the week's passage. And then the second one is review possible questions to ask the passage. So this is very specific language to Brave Writer. So let me share what that means so that you can get a sense. So if I go over here to the Dart guidelines and I come back here to page 11, there's a box that says stuff to ask any passage. So these are things that you'll be asking your kids. So you'll have the passage page printed, or you'll be pointing out the passage in the book, whatever works best for your kids. And you can ask them, what do you notice about this passage? And it can be anything. They could say, I notice it's long. I notice it's, it's got lots of capital letters, or whatever they notice. You can point out, like, what's this thing doing here, and point to punctuation marks. So when we say review the passage for questions or review possible questions to ask the passage, this is the kind of stuff we're talking about that you can, and then you can make up your own. Like, for instance, if you just studied simile with your kids, or in the past you did, and you notice there's a simile, then you could say something about that. Like, do you notice anything that came up that we've already talked about before? So you can kind of prep that in your mind about how you want to approach that with them so that you kind of start to shore up in your brain possible avenues to open discussion. So some of those can be, you can kind of fuel that fire with some of the what to note sections. So whatever guide you're using, look at the week one passage and take a few minutes to read it over. And you can even highlight some things on your own copy of the passage, stuff that you want to bring up to your kids. Are there exclamation points there? Did they, enjoy doing something with exclamation marks in the past? What are things that you can kind of bring up? What stands out to you in the passage? So take a few minutes to take your first passage, whatever guide you're doing, and read through it, mark some things up, maybe jot some notes in the margins so that you can kind of fuel your brain for questions you can ask your kids about it. Can this program be used year after year? Yes. In fact, one of our podcast episodes, I guess I was talking to Melissa Wiley about the idea of rereading. We were talking about books in a series and we were talking about rereading. And it's interesting to see how coming back and revisiting books again and again, you get more depth and more interest. So yeah, you could use it again and again. And especially Growing Brave Writers, the concepts in there, you will definitely use again and again. And then even the project products like Jot It Down, Partnership Writing, and Building Confidence for sure. The next part under Our Week with Dart prep section says, read what to note and how to teach sections. So here, what you want to do is you're thinking about a couple things as you're looking at these. One of them is what kinds of concepts do you want to teach based on what you see in your child's original writing? So that's one idea that you want to keep in mind as you're looking at the what to note. So the what to note, they're really short. They're just kind of fuel for conversations. They're things that you can talk about and discuss when you're first exploring the passage. You could use some of that for the stuff to ask any passage fodder, like ideas for what to talk about. And then the how to teach part, those are a little bit longer. They'll maybe take up a bit more time. So you can think about a few things. What are the things you're seeing in your kids' writing that they might need help with, like you notice it in their original writing? So are they forgetting to put capital letters on proper nouns? Well, if we're covering proper nouns, then that's something that you might say, oh yeah, we definitely want to do that. If they've got that down and they're always putting capital letters on everything that needs a capital letter in the original writing, and you think, you know what, yeah, they've got that down pretty good, they're doing well with that, we probably don't need to cover that, then you can actually skip that content in the Dart and then focus on other aspects of it, what's in the guide that you think is going to be more helpful to them in their original writing. The other thing you can consider is, will it be engaging for them? Is it something that's going to really catch their attention and be interesting to them? And you want to make sure that you cover it. You also want to look at things that maybe that's a little too much for them. Maybe they're just kind of not ready for that content. You can skip that. It's okay. We actually say here, pick concepts you'll skip this week. So too much, too difficult, too new. What are things that you want to cover? And what are things that you want to skip? And for things that you want to skip, I have a tip for you. So while you're looking through that content, you can write little notes in the margin. You can fill it in your planner book. I want to cover this. You don't have to read through everything right now. You're just skimming for concepts. So you're just skimming for the subtitles. You're skimming for the first few sentences to get a sense of what it's going to cover. And then you're making a check mark or making a note. Yes, I want to cover this, or I'm going to save this for later. You'll note that in the skills tracker, there is actually a section for saving for later. So where the little clock is. So you can actually put on there, like, I'm saving that for later. We're not ready to cover that right now. And then there's learning and then gets it. So there's 3 sections there in the skills tracker for you to be able to make that flexibility. First time, how many what to note topics are typical? You know what? There isn't really like a number. There's usually like 5 or so. We basically like pick out some things that we think are interesting and we put those on there. And then if there's stuff like that takes up, we have like a word count. We keep it to a page. We're really trying not to overwhelm you. So when it comes to the what to note, we really just keep it to 1 page. So yeah, okay. So this is a good time to cover this. Somebody has a question. My FOMO does not allow me to skip much. Please tell me something else. Okay. So here's what you can keep in mind. We intentionally add all kinds to the dart, arrow, and boomerang, knowing that you have kids at many different, some families have kids at all kinds of different levels. Your 8-year-old may be ready for one thing that your 10-year-old is already over, they've done it. So if we're covering periods and end marks that you definitely want to cover with your 8-year-old, maybe your 10-year-old has already been there, done that. So you could skip that with a 10-year-old, but you're going to cover it with the 8-year-old. Say there are things that you really know that your child is not ready for. So you can skip it. Now, when you decide to skip something, I know it can feel like, oh, but I'm not using the curriculum to its fullest. Think about it this way. When you walk into your pantry when you're going to make dinner, you don't pull everything out of your pantry. It's all available to you to possibly pull out and put dinner together with it, but you don't pull it all out to make dinner. So that's like when you look at a dart, you can say, okay, I've got all of this available to me, but I don't have to use it all. Now, if you're a maximalist person who's like, but it's in there and I want to keep it because I might want to pull it out for later, here's my tip for you. Print the passage page. Print the pages for the content you're skipping. So let's just say it's a spotlight on proper nouns. For some reason, I'm on proper nouns today. I don't know why. Say it's a spotlight on proper nouns with the activity. Print just those pages. Put it at the back of your file folder or to use some other time. Then when you have a really busy month, say you're not doing a full read aloud, maybe you're traveling and you just didn't have time, you don't have time to like do a full dart, then you can pull that out and you can say, you know what, remember when we read Heartwood Hotel? That was such a fun book. What was your favorite part of it? Who's your favorite character? You start engaging in this conversation. Did you know that Mona, her name is a proper noun, like you just like engage in this conversation, then all of a sudden you're reminiscing about the book, you're talking about the storytelling, you're talking about the devices, you're revisiting the characters, and then you've got an entryway to do this one concept when you skipped it before, but now it is going to be like your little lifesaver because you didn't have time to do a whole dart, but you can do what you have time to do, that one concept. And it allows for all of this bringing up and recall and getting their vocabulary going. It gets some narration happening because they're retelling the favorite parts of the story that they remember. And you actually get to use something you skipped in the past as a vehicle to your advantage in a time when you need it. So does that help relieve you of skipping? I hope it does. Yeah. The other thing you can do is be like Elsa and let it go. Let it go. It's okay because we spin and spiral. So you are going to come back around to proper nouns someday. we will cover them again in another dart or arrow. So it is okay to just say, you know what? I bought that special ingredient for that special recipe and I'm never going to use it again. So we're going to let it go. So it's all right too. All right. So, so that is my tip for when you are choosing what to cover and what to skip. So look at what's happening in your kids' original writing, what's happening that will interest them and be really engaging to them. And then what are they not ready for? What do you not have time for that you just need to skip? That also brings me to another skipping concept, which is it is okay to skip a whole week. So let's just say that you are doing a dart or an arrow and everybody goes down with the flu. You are getting ready to head into week 3. And now all of a sudden, like all you can do is listen to the audiobook. Everybody's down and out. There's nothing happening except for everybody snuggled with blankets, drinking, tea and hoping that, they survive the week. The next week, just jump right into week 4. It's okay. Like you don't have to feel like you have to backtrack, that you have to do all that. Once again, you can save those week 3 arrow concepts for another time if you want to, or you can just skip ahead, go do week 4. It's okay. Yeah, so take some time if you need it. I know I've been talking a lot. So take some time if you need it to go through those concepts, note that. All right, I'm just gonna look at the comments here really quick. Yeah, it says, I thought the programs were reading level based, but you make it sound like I couldn't use one program for multiple reading levels. Yeah, you can, because you're adapting it. So the books are read alouds. So you can be reading one book and then you can adapt the content in, say you're using the arrow for multiple children. Say you're using the arrow, but you have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. You can adjust the content either way for the child who's doing the work. So say you're doing copy work and you're going to let your arrow child, maybe, or your younger child, maybe copy a shorter part of the passage. So maybe just the first paragraph or the first sentence. And then your older child can copy more if they want to. Or if you're using a dart, maybe go back to the book and add more onto the passage so that they have more copy work if that's what they want to do. So yeah, it's really, really adjustable. Okay. So do you have all the passages that you want to, or all the concepts you want to look at for the week? Okay, so the next thing is pick a copywork strategy. So in the Dart, we have it very strategically mapped out for you, where week 1 is copywork, week 2 is French style dictation, week 3 is dictation, and then week 4 is reverse dictation. And we provide you the French style dictation and the reverse dictation passages. The reason why we started doing that in the Dart was because we know Dart is kind of the entry level where most parents are coming in and they're just learning these concepts. Their kids are just learning these concepts. And we were hearing from parents who were trying to do all the practices every single week. So having one passage, doing copy work, doing French style dictation, doing reverse dictation, and all of a sudden they were saying, but now my kid hates dictation. That's a lot. So what we started doing in the Dart was spreading that out. If your kids love copy work, they can do copy work every week if they want to copy the passages. If not, then just pick something. Pick what you want to do that week. So for the arrow and boomerang, the reason why we don't provide the passages is because what we want you to do is customize them for your child. So as your child gets older, you know the words that they struggle with in spelling. You know the punctuation concepts that they need some help with. So the easiest thing to do is to open your PDF of your arrow or your boomerang, copy the passage. You can highlight it in the PDF now. You can copy and paste it into like a Google Doc, and it makes it super easy. All you have to do is go through and make blanks for words you want them to practice for spelling. for reverse dictation, misspell a few words, take out the punctuation marks, becomes super quick and easy to do that and customize it specifically for your child and the skills you want them to work on. So this is your time to pick which strategy you're using for copy work and dictation. So there's the French style dictation, the reverse dictation, and then straight up dictation. If you are not familiar with those terms, read the guidelines. The guidelines have everything available to you. So go ahead and mark that down, whatever you're using. If you have time and you have a doc open and you want to go ahead and copy and paste that into another doc and start that, then you can do that. Here's a question. Is the what to note section more of a quick chat when you introduce the passage and the how to teach section more in depth later in the week? Yeah, that's a good way to frame it in your mind. The what to note section, I feel like, is a great way for you as a parent. It's basically like your cheat sheet. I mean, honestly, the whole curriculum is your cheat sheet as a parent. Your child could literally never see the dart arrow at all. So the idea is, especially with the what to note section, is that you read through that and you can kind of internalize the language. We're giving you the language that you can use to have these natural conversations. So when you introduce the passage to your child, you can say things like, wow, I noticed the word like here. Did you, it's, remember when we talked about similes, this is, and you're highlighting, here's a simile. Or you can say, the commas in this passage, let's count the commas and highlight them. And then we have given you some information that you can then naturally share with your child about those commas and what they're doing. And even some physical practices that you can do, like let's read the passage, and every time we get to a comma, we'll do a little dip with our knees, and then you're adding that in there. So we're giving you the tools to be able to naturally bring these things up with your kids instead of reading them verbatim from the dart or the arrow. The other thing I wanted to say about that is even the how to teach section, when you decide on a concept that you want to cover, it is definitely okay to, and even for some of your kids who are extremely allergic to lessons, might be preferable to not, read directly from it, where you're reading it, you're internalizing it, we're basically providing you with the language you need to have those conversations with your kids. So even with the longer content, there are lots of ways to use that, and it works especially well with kids who are not keen on having, doing school and having formal lessons that way. I'm speaking from experience. Okay, so and just so that you know, the other thing is in the guidelines, we have a blank page at the back. This is a handy thing that some people might not know. So let me go over here and share this with you. At the back of the guidelines, and I think even in your account, if you have the year-long program, so we have this cover page you can use if you have like a Dart folder. And then we also have this blank page. So what you can do with this is you can print it. And then when you open your Google Doc or whatever you have and you copy and paste your passage page in there and you make your French style dictation or your reverse dictation, then you can put this page back in your printer and print it again on official paperwork, like an official Dart page. Some kids really like to have the official stuff and they want it to look like their workbook page. So it doesn't look like just mom made it up. It can have that little official feeling to it. So if that's your kid, then we provide that for you too, which can be helpful. Okay, the next one is planning your copy work. Hugape. So if there's a whole section in the guidelines that talk about how to kind of spice up copy work and make it more interesting. So you can make a little note in your plan if you want to, have candle or some sort of treat. Here's my tip for this section. This is a great chance to flip back and look at the book club party content. The book club party content has way more than you could possibly do at any book club. So it's a great place to mine for ways to infuse your weekly copywork sessions or dictation sessions with something fun. There's a whole page of decorations you can have. There's a whole page of foods that are related to the book. Those are kind of fun to make during the week, just, as a little treat or surprise. There's a whole like games and activities section in the book club party content. You do not have to be involved in a book club to utilize that book club party content. It's amazing. We have wonderful writers who write that content who are just the most like delightful people. So book club party, what's that? Is it a Brave Writer resource? It is in the back of every single dart, arrow, boomerang, and slingshot. So if you do not know yet, so at the back, actually, let me do this the easy way. So on the cover here, it says book club party ideas, page 40. So if we skip to page 40, we've got family book club party ideas. So there's a little introduction. There's the first page is always like decoration ideas. All of the titles have to do with the book. So they're kind of fun. The second page is all food ideas. And then after that, we have activity ideas. So they can be crafts or games, like pin the heart on Ruby. There's, braids and ribbons because the girl in the book braids her hair. Big green monster. So landscape and light. So there's like a mixed media art project here because her mom in the book, her mom is an artist. So this section of, and we even do this for slingshot, boomerang and slingshot students love to party too. Do not let your teens get away with not partying. So definitely take advantage. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Why have I not thought of doing book club party ideas throughout the whole month? Brilliant. So excited. Good. Yes. It is a wealth of resource for you to use. So definitely take advantage of that. You don't have to have a whole entire book club. So when you get to this part about planning your copy work and the treats and the fun things that you're going to do to entice copy work, add some notes there in your planner about what you want to pull from the book club guide. All right, and then weeks in the Dart and Arrow, there are spotlights each week except for week 4 has a spotlight. So you want to look at the spotlight and plan a day that you want to do that. It's usually a little bit longer. There's a longer activity that goes with it. If you are planning for the boomerang and slingshot, this would be a good time to look at the any inside scoop or beyond the passage boxes. Those have a lot of extra information. And I will say that if you are planning the boomerang or slingshot, it's good. I mean, it's good for you as a parent to go through and look through this and decide on some things that you really like your teen to do. But it's also really good to bring your teen into the mix when you're planning. Say like, what part of these look interesting to you? Or honestly, you can hand the guide over to your teen. Kate, our boomerang writer, she imagines she's sitting across a coffee table with a teen as she's writing these. So she's really thinking about it with the teen in mind, that the teen can read through this content and engage in conversations with you, the parent. So this is a really good time to kind of hand some of that over to your teen and start to get them more engaged with the content that they're really interested in, what grabs their attention, what they want to be learning more about, and kind of taking those deep dives in. So obviously, if you don't have time to read the spotlights right now for week 1, that's fine. But make a note about what day you might want to spend a little bit of extra time going over that spotlight or doing that activity. They're a little bit more than the try-its. Darts and arrows and boomerangs and slingshots have try-it activities, which are a little bit shorter, kind of just like, give it a try. Here's a concept we introduced to you. Now, run with it on your own for a few minutes. Those usually don't take a lot of time. The writing activities with the spotlights to do. Okay, here's my other big juicy questions. We are on to big juicy questions. Big juicy questions, typically, especially in all the newer issues, go along with the timeline of the book. So the arrow, we try to specific, in the arrow and boomerang, we try to specifically call it like chapters or page numbers associated with those. So one of the things that you can do, a couple ways to approach it. If you want to print the big juicy questions at like 75%, and then just slip them right inside the cover of the book so you have them available to you, that's one idea. So if you print them small, then they're right here. You can slip them in the book and they're easy to access, like right before you sit down for read aloud when your kids are all running around getting their handcraft or, whatever it is, getting that last little drink of water. You can kind of breeze through the questions really quick and get an idea of kind of in your mind what you can do. So that's one way. Another thing you can do is you can print them full size, but cut them and to strips and then slip them into the book. So for the Dart, we actually have, to start, like before you start reading, you can stick that right in the front. And then, a little way in, you just kind of, get the pages that you think kind of a little way in and you can slip that there so that as you're doing your read alouds, you can have those questions top of mind and naturally talk about them at a good time during the read aloud. So then it becomes a natural conversation and not a quiz. So you're reading along and, you say, who's this book about? Like who would you think the main character is? What's her biggest challenge so far? Like, what is she faced with? And so you're doing that while you're sitting on the couch, while you're reading aloud, and it doesn't feel so kind of like they're on the spotlight and being quizzed. So those are a couple ways. If you have more ways to think about and use big juicy questions, you can put them in the chat. Some of you, as your kids get older, you might have your kids do like written response. So this would be a good time to look through the questions and see like which ones might be good for written response, to do like to plant a seed for a free write and, kind of take and check off next to those questions what you might want to do for the big juicy questions. So I'm realizing I never really planned, even though we used the Dart all last year. I briefly looked at the Dart when we did our daily readings and always felt behind because I missed things. I felt like I always had to go back. I feel like I'm going to watch this replay every time I start a new Dart. Yeah, and you know what? It's okay to do it that way too, and like I said, if you miss something, don't feel like you have to go back. It's okay. Now that you have seen it and you can recognize it, that concept, whatever you felt like you missed, will come up again. It's not like adjectives. That was the only time you're ever going to see them. It will come up again, and you'll be able to bring that up in a conversation with your kids and cover that. Big juicy questions. We like what would be the worst way for this book to end? What would be the best ending? Yeah. How do you want this to end? Yeah. Yeah, it's fun to get them to start thinking about, what needs to happen. That's one of the common questions for the Dart. Like, what needs to happen for this book to come to a close? Like what would feel satisfying as a satisfying ending to this book? So that kind of takes you through the weekly content. Hopefully I haven't been talking too much. I was hoping to stop talking to give you guys more time to actually look at your guide. On the bottom of the Our Week With planner, down here, it says monthly. So you have kids pick one big juicy question they can skip. So it's kind of like in a game show where you're like, I don't know the answer to that. Like, skip that question. Let's go to the next one. So it also gives them a little bit of autonomy, and it gives them, the chance to have some control over what's happening. Like, you know what? I'm going to skip that one. It also might feel really personal because these are a lot of times we do have open-ended questions, and sometimes it might be something that they're thinking that they don't want to share about. So it's okay for them to skip a question. I mentioned that week 4 does not have a spotlight for the Dart and Arrow. The reason why we don't have a spotlight that week is because we want you to use that time that you would normally spend on the spotlight looking at the literary device for the month. So that's a good time it would be good if you want to do, like, say you decide in week 3 that the spotlight is something you're going to skip because your kids already have that down. It's a concept they know. Do the lit device, like that's the flexibility of it. So you can look ahead like that. Planning a morning or afternoon to try the writing activity. So that's something that we design that's just a little bit more in depth than like a spotlight activity or a try it most of the time. And then host a book club party, even if it's just your own family. So over and over again, we hear from people who just host a book club party for just them and their kids. It is just the parent and 1 or 2 kids, and they decorate and they plan and they have a really fantastic time. We did not cover what we don't have in here because we added it after we created this is the cultural context box. In the darts and the newer darts and arrows, there is a cultural context box, and it will give you some context for some of the things happening in the book that might be stuff that you want to share with your kids. So it could be anything from holidays that are celebrated in the book. They may be holidays that you celebrate, or they may be holidays that are not familiar to you. And we're kind of giving you like just a little bullet list overview of what those are you can decide if you want to just use that for your own background knowledge so you can share that with your kids. Or maybe it's a leaping off point for more exploration to create like a whole unit study. So that's another thing to incorporate in your planning is how you might want to use any of the cultural context information. Did anybody actually plan their whole first week while we were talking? That's great. I saw a few heads nodding. It says I try to incorporate a field trip or outings that relate to the book. So I'm trying my hardest to get baseball game tickets to see the Padres stay. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. I grew up going to Padres games. Oh, that's exciting. Yeah, trying to place this book, I was like, well, baseball's still going to be happening in August. I really didn't want to save it for the end of the year. I don't know. It just felt like a good kickoff book. Well, that would be super fun. Yeah, field trips, all of that would be fantastic. Somebody says they got tickets to the Braves. That's awesome. Yeah, field trips are a really great way. And, like being able to go on some sort of field trip related to the book and then talk about the things that you read in the book and, those things that you're seeing on the field trip and how they're related and whether or not the author kind of got it right, and maybe would your kids do things differently based on what they know now that they've been on this field trip. I love all that. Okay, there were a few questions in the chat that I wanted to make sure that I got to. How do I use writing program like Building Confidence along with the literature singles? Anybody else have this question? If you're starting them all at the same time, so let's say you purchase a bundle, there is a how to use your bundle PDF. So it will walk you through. Typically, what we say is start with 1. So like do your first dart and kind of get your handle on that and get a month of that under your belt. And then the next month, incorporate your first partnership writing project. And you get to decide how much time you're dedicating to your language arts and how you want to divide that up. So for instance, like if your kids are really into one of the writing projects and they're just going for it, then maybe you do the read aloud and you do some copy work and just pick one concept each week to cover in the Dart that month. So it's and you employ those. It's okay to skip strategies that I gave you, and that's okay. Or you are doing some of the concepts from Growing Brave Writers and you're incorporating those into how you're working through the writing projects, like free writing and like the revision practices and things like that. And say you're really getting deep into that, and you can hold off on some of the other things. Maybe you skip copy work and you just discuss the passage that month for your dart or your arrow. So there's lots of flexibility. Don't feel like you have to do every single thing and check off every single box, because the idea is growth and really learning alongside your kids and meeting them where they are. And all of it kind of comes back around. That's why we spin and spiral. And if you're using lit singles, we always put the spin and spiral page as like a sample page on those literature single pages so that you can breeze through the spin and spiral and you can see what's covered. And then we also created the search and sort literature spreadsheet so that you can, so say you're doing one of the project products and your child has decided that they are going to do the codes, and then you want to find a book that has to do with secret codes so that you can kind of blend those things and make a unit study. There you go. So on the literature singles page, there's a bullet list and there is a link to the search and sort spreadsheet. And that spreadsheet, it can be so valuable for those of you who are integrating and making unit studies so that you can have a lot of that crossover. I will, let me grab the search and sort spreadsheet. It's on the Lit Singles page. So the Lit Singles page, if you go to just the main Brave Writer page and you go down, if you go to digital products, and there'll be a drop-down menu and there's an option called Literature Singles. So you can click on that Literature Singles page and scroll down past the dart, arrow, boomerang, slingshot box to a section called Notes. And on that Notes, there on the second bullet, it says there is a search and sort singles spreadsheet. I left a link in the chat for a section of the Brave Writer bookstore called Tools for the Art of Writing. And there are really great things that we put in there that are like things like black paper and gel pens that write on black paper, and all kinds of ways to kind of spice up copy work and make it more interesting. So yeah, the story dice are super fun. There was another question that came up here, kind of hoping to do a Zoom for writing projects. Do you guys want a writing projects Zoom? If you're in Brave Learner Home, there is some content in there about writing projects. But if you're in Brave Learner Home and you just start a thread about writing projects, and we can answer some questions there. How much structured writing do you suggest they do in a week for a 12, 10, and 6-year-old? It really depends on your kids and where they're at, but I would definitely start with free writing. In Growing Brave Writers, I think it's chapter 7 is the whole free writing practice. So free writing is a really great place to start. And then there are all kinds of expansion and revision and editing practices that you can go through in Growing Brave Writers. And the formats are in Jot It Down, Partnership Writing, Building Confidence, and Help for High School. So you can integrate those in with the work you're doing in the dart, arrow, boomerang, or slingshot. So I don't really have a suggestion for like how often or how much structured writing to do. It really depends on your kids and using the practices that we have laid out. So I would, if they're open to doing free writing once a week is great. And then the practices that we have are, you do multiple free writing, like for instance, in Growing Brave Writers, like I think it's 7 or 8 free writes, and then they pick one. So over the course of 7, 8 weeks, you're just doing one free write a week, and then you're picking one, you're having them pick one to go ahead and revise and pull through the revision practices. So the key is it doesn't have to be a ton of writing, but it can be really meaningful writing, and it can develop their skills that way. Could you talk a bit about French dictation? Is it something we do every week with different passages, or one passage in the whole month? The way we have it scheduled and set up in the Dart is just one passage a month. If your kids are super keen on it and they really like it, then you can do it more often. You can do it with all the passages. Really kind of gauge the interest of your kids. Really quick way and easy way to do that. I don't know if you heard earlier, but just like copy and paste it, put it in another doc, and then create your own French style dictation. So it doesn't have to be every week. It can just simply like if there's a passage that it has a lot of words maybe that you know that your kids kind of misspell in their original writing, and you want to do a French style dictation just to kind of highlight those words. Maybe there's a homophone like your and your that they're having trouble with, and it's not an official French style dictation week, but you want to kind of capitalize on having that word be in a passage, then you can make your own French style dictation for that. If this has been helpful to you, please let us know, because if it's helpful to you and you want to keep doing it, and like this was, I talked through a lot of this because there are so many of you that are new. In future months, maybe I'll do a little less talking and we could do more of that, planning alongside. But I hope that you have been able to plan along with us. Let me know if you got your planning done, so that you can kind of like start to hit the ground running here when you actually start doing this with your kids. And that's great. So yeah, I really appreciate all being here, and let us know how it goes. Bye, everyone.